one and all. Welcome to another episode of MMA Vision Analysis. This one, I'm here to talk about Dan Hooker and the possibility of Dan Hooker going against Charles Oliveira, former lightweight champion. But before getting started, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, click that notification to get all of this that is new from this channel, your channel, the one and only MMA Vision Analysis. Charles Oliveira, Dan Hooker is a very realistic opportunity now that Dan Hooker defeated Matthews Gamrot prior to UFC 305. Matthews Gamrot, I believe, was looked at as one of the top contenders in that lightweight division, at least one of the upcoming names that could have or still could give the champion division a very difficult time. Unfortunately for Gamrot, he was defeated by a Dan Hooker, night of UFC 305, Perth, Australia. And now Dan Hooker has been bringing up all sorts of names, all sorts of propositions. It's amazing how one win in the UFC can turn fortunes around. That's definitely been the case for Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker is always looked at as a respectable contender in that lightweight division. But truthfully, after some of the losses that he's suffered, some have held back on those particular statements. Now, that being said, obviously, if I'm not mistaken, it's a couple wins in a row for Dan Hooker. And, last one against Matthews Gamrot was a respectable and is against a respectable opponent, to say the least. Now we have many, many propositions for Dan Hooker. I mean, immediately after the fight, he did express his interest in fighting a Conor McGregor. I don't think that fight will happen. I think closest fighter to fighting Conor McGregor is perhaps Michael Chandler if and when Conor comes back. So that's out of the picture for at least temporarily, at least until Michael Chandler gets his fight out of the way with Conor McGregor, and then we can talk about a Dan Hooker facing off Conor McGregor. I don't know how interested Conor in that. And then we have the Max Holloway call out, and then now we have a Charles Oliveira possible matchup, speculations in terms of these two facing each other. I could understand the logic behind a Dan Hooker, Charles Oliveira, because realistically now, Dan Hooker has put his name up there with the top of that division, and maybe 2-3 fights down the line, we can see this guy challenge for a title. Let's say Charles Oliveira, a name or two after that, and then yes, this guy can actually challenge for a title. Let's say 2-3 fights down the line. Not saying that the fight against Charles Oliveira is an easy fight. A lot of speculations for Dan Hooker near future. I'm super interested to see what happens for Dan Hooker. In all honesty, I'm more interested in that Max Holloway fight for the BMF title, if that's even a possible option to make. I do understand Max has Ilya Topuria to deal with. So many propositions for Dan Hooker, a lot of fun fights that could be made for this guy, and I'm super excited to see what happens next for Dan Hooker. If you made it this far, I appreciate you for sticking around. Please let me know what you think in the comments, like, subscribe for more.